Be 15, with same age cousin and brothers all within a year of each other. Go into the woods to be manly like we do. Have normal supplies, axe, hatchets, knives, matches, etc. Getting late in woods, but we be extra manly, as 15-year-olds like to pretend to be. Finally decide the bugs are too much, time to head in. On way back there is a pretty androgynous looking person on our trail. Just standing there in torn clothes. Hey, you lost? We can lead you out if you want. Starts doing this heaving motion, like dry heaving but lifting their elbows too, very unnatural looking. What the fuck are you doing? Heaving stops, opens mouth and just screams bloody fucking murder. Today I would have ran, but we were all posturing like 15-year-olds do, plus we were stocked with lethal weapons and there was like 9 of us. All weapons raised in defense mode. Screaming stops after like 30 seconds. Cricks head unnaturally, like they do in almost every possession movie, and smiles at us. Get the fuck away from us. Runs off into the woods, strangely can't hear its footsteps after it disappears in first layer of brush. Nope, out of the woods. We didn't go back to the woods for like 3 weeks.
I live in a semi-rural community in the Sonoran Desert, Arizona. So basically there are houses around mine and we are surrounded by desert wilderness and mountains. So here's the story. Windy but clear night in the desert. No street lights but it's a full moon and there's plenty of porch lights. Clear visibility. Sitting on my roof where there's a deck and chairs looking across the desert. Power lines are buzzing abnormally loud and make this bizarre tethery noise. Reminded me of Twin Peaks. Light up a cigarette, no other drugs in me. Hear a trash can tip over down the street. Look that direction and see this shadowy shape, about as tall as an F-250, darting from shadow to shadow. I'm spooked but it's not close enough to be sure it's real. See it dart into my neighbor's backyard. Their horses go crazy and make a fuckload of noise but my neighbors don't seem to be home. Can't see the thing because it's mostly dark in their yard. Suddenly see it dart behind our shop in our yard. It was as tall as our truck and 100% humanoid as it moved towards the shop. Very spooked now and my dog is losing his shit inside the house. Sit there a long time frozen. Finally go downstairs and get on with my night. Still windy as fuck. About go to bed. Suddenly hear footsteps run across my roof like I was in Signs or some shit. Hear my mom say, "Oh my god. I think an animal just jumped off our roof." Spooked.jpg. Still fell asleep and never saw it again.
Yeah, this was between Lahore and Faisalabad, Pakistan. This is the only spooky thing to have happened to me personally, a fake, but a few friends and family members have told me stuff that happened to them. A girl I was briefly acquainted with told me this one. B girl. Hanging out with cousins in old ancestral home, watching a movie. Male cousin goes to make popcorn. Movie starts, girl and other cousins sitting on couches. Male cousin comes back and sits on the couch next to girl. Girl asks cousin where the popcorn is. Cousin doesn't reply, keeps staring slightly to the right of the TV screen. Cousin walks into the room with popcorn, sees himself sitting on the couch. Girl looks over and realizes there's 2 of them. Cousin looking thing turns face towards girl and starts smiling. Smile keeps widening, so wide it should have gone off the face, but it gets distorted and seems both contained by the face and yet wrapping around to the back of the head. Actual cousin drops the popcorn and yells. The thing disintegrates sideways and fades away, like a transition effect in a PowerPoint presentation. Smile is the last thing to go. Sounds kind of like a mix of a Western skinwalker and a standard poltergeist.
Weirdest shit I saw when I was doing rescue shit in the bush in Australia. Some bushwalker got lost late at night. We found their camp abandoned and signs were they ran in a hurry. Their tent was also slashed. After about an hour of tracking them through the bush, we find them just standing there in the open, completely frozen. They didn't acknowledge us calling to them, or react to our torches. There was 4 of us. I'll call them John, Jack, Jake, and me. Jake didn't want anything to do with this dude, he was freaked out. Jack walks up to the dude to offer him some water. As soon as he laid hands on the dude, there was an ear-piercing screech and then both the dude and Jack were gone. All that was left was the bottle that Jack dropped. We all legged it back to the trail, we somehow got separated. Radio wasn't working either. 2 hours later I somehow stumble across our vehicle even though I was pretty sure I was never heading in the right direction for it. I get in, lock the doors, and wait until morning. Morning comes, and I return to the place where Jack went missing. The bottle was still there, all of our tracks were missing, and nobody was responding to their radio. John and Jake are still missing to this day. So is Jack, but I swear I've seen him stalking me recently from afar at night, live right by the woods. Backyard merges into woods. One summer I was in the habit of going for a walk a few hours before sunset. Usually came back as it was turning dark. One night I stayed at one of my spots for an hour or two after it got dark. Family got concerned. Dad shouted my name from the backyard at the tree line a few times. Barely heard him and returned home. Busy for next 2 days and don't go for my walk. The next time I went for my walk everything was like normal. Hang out a while at one of my spots. It gets dark. Right before it's about to get completely pitch black I get up to leave when I hear something that gave me the weirdest shock. It was my dad's voice shouting my name. But it wasn't coming from the direction of our property, it was coming from deeper in the woods. It called again. Dave. Dave. Just like my dad would call for me. Basically freak out internally standing in one spot. I know for a fact my dad is actually working late and won't be home till much later. There's no way in hell he'd just randomly be in the woods and calling me. Once the complete impossibility of it really happening hits me I take off running at top speed. Couldn't see anything. Still legging it like my life depended on it. Felt like I was flying down the trails. Somehow my feet knew every little ditch, rock, branch, etc. Finally get home. Heart is pounding like crazy. Calm down a little. Out of breath ask my mom, is dad home? She says, what? I told you earlier he is working late. He won't be home till 2-3 am. Never tell her or anyone else in the family what happened. Never stayed in the woods after dark again. This happened when I was like 4 and it still gives me chills thinking about it. Camping with dad in the woods near our house. Lived near a huge national park so we have tons of places to go. Decide we're gonna make a trip of it and hike in a ways. From the time we parked until we stopped for lunch, we didn't hear or see a single soul. We were completely isolated. Stopped to have lunch near an old riverbed. I start to get this weird feeling. I look over to see if dad feels it too. He looks slightly worried. Something just didn't feel right. It felt like we were being watched. Suddenly on the opposite side of the riverbed a woman appears from the bushes. She's wearing jogging clothing and sneakers. She's smiling really big at us. Hi. She calls at us. Dad doesn't answer. I'm looking for my daughter. She doesn't say this in a worried way, though. More like a mildly annoyed way. I've been looking all over for her. Have you seen her? No, my dad says. She sort of hesitates. Never stops smiling. Hi. I'm looking for my daughter. She's gotten off somewhere, can you help me look for her? What? I'm thoroughly shitting bricks at this point. Dad says no again. More firmly this time. The woman just stands there, smiling at us. Dad says we need to go. We pack up our stuff and the whole time he keeps an eye on her. Sometimes she calls stuff like hi. And have you seen my daughter anywhere? Finally packed up and ready to go. Dad checks my pack. Turns to check on her. She's fucking gone. Never heard her leave. We get the hell out of there and back to the car as fast as possible. The thing about it that was so fucked, aside from the whole thing, was that she was wearing sneakers and jogging shorts. We were deep in backcountry. There is absolutely no way she got there in those clothes.
Fuck it, postin'. Before I begin, just know, I'm a stranger on the internet, my word is worth exactly bunk, but that also means I have no reason to lie. What am I gonna look cool on fucking 4chan? This is exactly what happened to the letter. Summer 2013. Drinking with a few brothers. Something about lights over a park an hour away. Laugh it off as small town news. Someone gets the idea to camp there for shits and giggles. I'm down. A week later we get our schedules lined up and head out. Brothers drinking and smoking. I had a drug test coming up and can't stomach beer unless I'm feeling 100%. So spend the night sober. Skip to 3 a.m. Brothers are slowly dropping off, going to their own tents, but I'm still wide awake. Walk around the forest trails to burn some energy. See a few people walking around, but considering the lights in the sky shit, I wasn't surprised. Eventually start walking parallel to another guy about 40 feet away. Too many trees between our paths to see anything but the green jacket he was wearing. Haha, hey, he's got the same jacket with the shelves rolled up too. Walked to a street that was fairly well lit. Glance over at my walking buddy. Same jacket, same shorts, shoes, hair, glasses. Down to the fucking Majora's Mask tattoo. That fucker was me. He looks up, we lock eyes. As I'm trying to process what the fuck I was looking at, he starts making a beeline towards me. 4 years of track and field kicking and I run like I've never run before. Hit the campsite in about 2 minutes, throw open my car door and smoke an entire pack of cigarettes. Eventually brothers start waking up. Never tell anyone, lie and say I just woke up despite being paper white with flushed cheeks and bags under my eyes.
This happened an hour ago. I'm shaken. I live on the coast of SC. My backyard directly leads to marsh in an open field, surrounded by woodland. I woke up to get a glass of water downstairs. I kept having this feeling, as if something were off. So I went to find my mother, who's someone who tends to stay up late, going about chores. I went to the backyard and saw her about 100 yards from the back door facing the marsh. I called out to her but she didn't hear me, so I walked out to her. Once I started getting close, she turned to face me, but something about the way she looked was off, so I asked her if anything was wrong. At this point, I was about 30 feet from her and she started walking towards me. The fucking back door opens and I turn to see my mom standing on the deck, and she called out to me asking what I'm doing. I never ran so fast in my life. As I looked back to the marsh, I could see that thing booking it for the woods. It looked just like my mother. I yelled at mom to go inside, as there was something out there. I told her what I saw and I've been crying and I can't stop shaking. What the fuck just happened? Did something try to lure me out to the marsh? I must be losing my damn mind, but I know what I saw.
Got some OC. Be me. Summer after senior year in high school. Live in northern Minnesota, the Two Harbors area for those of you that care. Been busting my ass working all summer so I don't have to work full-time right off the bat in college. Have a day off of work. All of my friends had work, so no plans. Decide to just walk around in the woods for a while. Lived here all my life, so I know the trails near my house like the back of my hand. Walk along the trails for a while. Familiar paths get boring after a while. Decide to cut through the trees off the path for a while to see how long it would take me to get back home. Yes, I was that bored. Notice some trampled brush. There be deers in these here woods. Follow trail of trampled brush until I notice some guy with a dead deer at his feet. It's not buck season. Ask the guy what the fuck he's doing killing deer in the middle of the summer. His back to me. Ignores me. Say it a little louder. He starts shaking, almost like he's laughing but no noise is coming out. He turns to face me. Anorexia.png. The guy's bone thin and gangly, sunken eyes and everything. stretches his lips to form the most terrifying, lopsided grin I've ever seen. Shit still haunts me to this day. Ask him if everything's okay. That's when I notice something terribly wrong. This guy doesn't have a gun. What the fuck are you doing? I tell him I'm just exploring, and that I was just heading home. It's the middle of the summer. Wait, what? Suddenly it hits me. Those were the exact words I used the first time I asked why he killed the deer. Suddenly drops down on all fours like Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Starts edging towards me. Keeps repeating, "You can't kill deer." Take a few steps back. The guy/thing grins again. Suddenly, there's a tree right behind me. Run into it. Thing lets out this cackling noise. Hear rustling noises in the brush. Some old guy comes booking it through the trees out of fucking nowhere, swinging his arms around like a lunatic. Pulls a 9mm revolver out of the waistband of his jeans and blasts the thing in the back of the skull, killing it instantly. Look at the old guy. It's Bill fucking Murray. No one's ever gonna believe you. Races off in the opposite direction. MFW.
Got some OC from last night, was hoping I would find one of these threads when I got back. Anyways, Greentext. Me and my friend John are sitting in Valero at about 10 at night, sippin' on peace tea, sucking up some free Wi-Fi. Our friends Dylan, Kyler, and Caleb get done with whatever they were doing at the school and roll up. Valero is like our small town's Walmart. We talk, decide to buy some Monster, tea, and Mountain Dew and build up a bonfire to chill around all night. Run by my house, acquire M44 Nugget, Mossberg 500, already carrying Glock 20. Go to John's house, fuck huge bonfire built up in the middle of his huge field, surrounded by miles of woods on 3 sides, pretty legit, field is about 6 acres wide. We all back trucks up and do some good tailgating, grill some steaks that Kyler brought, having a good time talking about shit. Start hearing a shitload of coyotes howling and yelping and stuff. John says there's always this pack of coyotes that hang around but are scared of humans. Well, fuck, alright, wanted to shoot something. 2 hours later, need to piss. Go behind truck and let it flow. 4 sets of eyes reflected back from the light of the fire. Nope. Avi. Draw Glock 20, take a couple of pot shots and they disappear. Get spotlight out and go over, everyone armed, to check for blood. Of course nothing there but some footprints that looked like a cross between a bear and a deer track. Alright, can we not do this please? Go back to the truck and keep talking, but keep guns ready. We hear some god-awful screeching sound coming from our 1 o'clock. Oh shit. JPEG. Shine spotlight where it came from, nothing there. It sounded really close to us but it wouldn't have time to run away. Put down my shotgun and look back at the group. There is a fucking guy standing on the other side of the fire. He's just smiling away and like giggling in a really deep voice. We all know he needs to die. We all unload on it, stir up ashes from the bonfire because of muzzle blast. Takes the longest 30 seconds of my life for the smoke to clear. He's still standing there, but with his back to us. He says in an inhumanly deep voice, "You shouldn't have fucking done that." He just starts screaming and he falls to the ground and starts convulsing. I yell at everyone to get in the trucks and speed back to fucking Valero to talk. Out of the field in about 5 seconds. See Ethan's truck swerve a little in my rear view mirror, and see a thing that looks like a bear on steroids barely lit up by his headlights. Look back onto the road, it's right in front of me. I hit it doing 85 and it falls across my hood and falls up. Ethan passes me up noping so hard. Finally get to Valero. Bitches must have thought we were crazy as shit walking into Valero holding long guns and me open carrying my Glock. Everybody knows everybody, so we tell them it's all good and don't worry about it, and they're like fuck alright. Talk about it and decide to go back to my house and stay there. As we get up, the guy who was at the field walks in, all casual, wearing clean clothes, and just stares at us as we walk past. Fuck no. Get in trucks, Go to my house half an hour away. Dude staring at us from inside, and as I pull away he starts to smile. Get to my house. Invite one chick over after a couple hours, it's now about 2:30. 8/10, and bites for tits, but most fantastic ass I've ever seen. Arrives in her truck, we'll call her Jennifer. She says she was creeped out because she saw a dude with long hair and jeans on the side of the road trying to hitchhike, 3 times on the way to the house. Aw shit. Keep hearing knocks on the door, we keep 2 people at each door, you can't enter anywhere else in the house, like it's not fucking possible at all. While watching the back door with Jennifer, knocks cease and she does the whole scared girl thing and we end up having a quickie, pretty great. It was directly in front of the door, on a chair about 2 feet away, no possible way of entry, the other watch team kept their eye on the door the entire time. Hear screaming and turn around. This motherfucker is doing the same convulsing shit he was doing in the field, in the middle of my house. We don't even ask questions, we hop in trucks and leave, we all see him like 5 times. We just drive around town, occasionally stopping to talk, keep seeing this guy all around town in his hairy form and in his human form. We fill up at Valero again and we drive 2 hours to Dallas, and stay at a hotel, decide it's safe after 2 days, saw him multiple times on the way up there though but ignore it. Come back this morning and haven't seen him yet. So fucking done. I know for a fact other people make up these skinwalker stories, but goddamn, this shit seriously happened to me. It's the biggest adrenaline rush I've had in my life, and that's saying something considering I've been in multiple firefights.
I have something I will only share with you all, as you all are the only ones who will care, understand. When I was a child, I was very socially inept. I lived in a semi-rural area, didn't have very many friends, etc. Mum and Dad were always doing work or just not caring very much. Every day I would play in the forest behind my house. I would look for rabbit holes and treasure pine cones. When I was around 8 or 9, my parents got divorced, so I was in a sort of emotionally traumatic state. I didn't understand what was going on, or if it was my fault, etc. Luckily enough, my cunt of a mother didn't want me, so me and my dad stayed at our house, and she moved on. After this, I understood how he had felt my entire life, and I started spending a lot of time with him, helping with his work, making dinner, washing the house, cleaning up the garden, etc., because I thought it would lessen his load. It didn't, sadly, so I kept going into the forest and playing by myself. One day, I came across a creek. It was only a few centimeters deep, and not that many meters across. I started coming here every day to draw pictures in the sand, and make forts with the stones. As I got older, 11 or 12, I started mentally developing farther than I should have, constantly thought about suicide, angsty, felt I should be a higher level scholar, etc. And this place became a sort of place to wash away my tears and think. Now, I've never had problem with schizophrenia, or any other mental illness, and I still believe I don't, but sometimes I really do question my sanity. One day I went to the creek early, and there was a boy there. He looked a little younger than me, maybe 10, and was wearing the oddest clothes I'd ever seen. Looked like something out of an old Siberian colonist's novel my dad had read all the time growing up. He saw me and had a sort of grin on his face, and he said, "Boy, am I glad I'm not the only lonely kid alive." So, I said, "I'm sure there's many. Who are you?" He sort of stood there, looking puzzled. I asked again, "What's your name?" He then repeated, "Name." In this sort of voice I couldn't really take in well, almost like it was electronic or something. "What are you, stupid? What are you called?" He then replied, "I'm called Desmond. Sorry I couldn't hear you." "What's your name?" I replied with, "I'm Anon." "So, why are you here?" He then told me a story about his pap and him living alone in a house on the other side of the wood. The direction he pointed in was a lake. There were no houses over there. I instantly picked up his bullshit, but didn't say anything. "You should really get a new set of clothes." "What are those from?" 1384. Ha ha. We both laughed for a little bit, and started talking some more about other things. The next time I saw him, he was wearing extremely modern and colorful clothes, and he had grown, now looking and sounding a tad older than me, 13 I'd say. Anyways, we got to know each other, and spent a lot of time together out there. I remember playing all sorts of games and questing for rocks and shit. One time, we had swam in the lake, and I remember his neck and sides looking really stretched, yet somehow still natural, just not very male. We became best friends, and we shared literally everything with each other. He told me his life story, but it never seemed to match up every time he told it. I told him mine, and he looked oddly depressed, like he felt my pain, and hugged me. I was young, so I was like, "Are you gay?" Ha ha, and he sort of had this low, almost groaning laugh as he looked at the ground with a sad smile on his face. I remember this vividly, that disappointed face, almost as if he wanted to be close to me. Anyways, as I grew older I became wiser, and noticed he said a lot of words in the same tone as the previous time, or that he only had a few different types of faces, laughs. I thought he may be a tad mentally ill. At this point I still thought gays were retarded, and I thought he was gay because of his overly colorful clothes and overall feminine looks. Kind of reminds me of that Dumbledore kid or whatever. Anyways, around when I was 16, I had finally noticed he had never changed. Same clean clothes, same childish face, as if he never aged. This is when I started getting a tad creeped out, as all of it started piecing together. At first, I thought he was a ghost or something, because he had never shown me his house or family, and when I tried showing him mine he never really wanted to leave the woods. So I hung out with him less. Whenever I would, he seemed overly joyful and full of life, but whenever I left I would look over my shoulder and see him tearing up a bit. I felt really bad, but I didn't want bad mojo or anything. As I visited less and less, I noticed the area started smelling very dank, and always like roadkill or something. I asked him about it, but he would always reply, "It's only nature, and nature's supposed to change itself from time to time." By the time I was 19, I finally had to go to college and abroad, so I had to tell him my final goodbyes. I never felt the way I did that day. When I told him, he got down on his knees and just started sobbing. I got down on mine and just held him, telling him it'd be alright, and that one day we'd go see the world and get out of these damn woods. I didn't want to let go though. I just wanted to stay right there. It felt so good having someone care that much about you. When I finally had to leave, he handed me a pine cone, and told me to remember him by it. So, I went off to college to study literature and history, not sure what I wanted to really do with my life. I remember once we had to write a fictional essay that would summarize a book we would publish if we were authors. I wrote it about him, what I thought happened to him after I left. My peers thought it was quite dumb and boring, but I would read it every so often, just to think about him. Every night, it seemed like he was there. I would have dreams about those woods and the good memories associated with them. Once, in June, I remember sitting on the floor of my apartment, just telling myself stories about what we could be doing right now if I wasn't wasting my time trying to do something I didn't want to. It got so serious that I entered a sort of depression, and would cry myself to sleep every night at the thought of me wasting my life with this bullshit education. That's when I started watching TV a whole lot more. I remember one night watching Animal Planet, or Discovery, one of those nature channels or whatever, and it was a show called Mysteries of Nature, or something like that, and they had an episode on skinwalkers, American natives who would become heretics of their tribe by killing their kin, then having the ability to shapeshift into wolves and other animals. I found it interesting, so I started reading more about it. When I read one story I found on Google, I screamed loud enough to be dismissed by my landlord for a week, for waking the dead at 3 a.m. It was a story about some campers who had a pair of friends, one of them being named Danny. I'm sure you've all seen that copypasta a billion times, and that's when I knew that, my entire life, I had just been some toy of some freakish creature. The weird smells, loss of words, lack of wanting to see civilization, it all hit me at once. That night and that night alone, I decided I would drive all the way back home, and let the thing kill me. It was the only memory keeping me going, and now that was gone. I kept telling myself, it's game over, it's all a fucking game. The entire drive, I didn't think about anything, other than going to the creek, grabbing him by the neck, and telling him that I wanted to die. My only real friend wasn't even fucking human, just some disgusting creature spawned from the pits of hell. That little faggot blonde boy was probably some settler from God knows when that happened to get his guts ripped out of his asshole. It was very early morning when I finally arrived in my driveway. The dew was still settling on the grass, the birds were chirping, the wind was low, and the sky was that beautiful type of bright you only notice when you get a good night's sleep. I walked around my house, and paced right into the wood. The entire walk, the birds slowly stopped singing, the brushes stopped moving, and the sky seemed to slowly brighten into day. I knew this was it. This peaceful day was here to comfort me as I was terminated by some otherworldly being. I got to the creek, and of course he wasn't there. Did I really expect him to hang around there for 4 years while I was off in college? Did I let my own stupidity get the best of me? I started crying and screaming things at his memory. You fucking lied to me. I was never your friend, you used me. I was pacing in circles, and I came across the spot where I held him in my arms that first time, and I felt my skin crawl. I started blabbering on some speech about how shitty I was, how everything was my fault, and how everything in my life, including me finding out the monster that he was my fault. It's only nature, and nature's supposed to change itself from time to time. The birds started chirping again, the dew seemed to reappear, and the branches of the trees swayed in a way that made the morning sky seem like a gradient. I just looked at him in anger, and he looked at me in depression. You've come here to kill me, right? I said nothing, but slowly approached him, my body sort of limping in anger. I'm so sorry, Anon. I never meant to hurt you in any way. He was starting to slowly back up, and I started mouthing words to myself, my jaw slamming shut each time. I felt my eyes dilate with this intense rage, like I wanted to rip him open and wear his skin to show him that I'm done with sanity, or something like that. Anon. I know how you feel and what you want to do to me. I'm so sorry. I never hurt anyone in my pathetic life, and all I wanted was for someone to love me back. I've read about what you are, and what you intend to do with me. I know you're lying to me right now. I noticed you my entire lift, mumbling, limping, the bruises and stretch marks, all of it. He started crying, with his hand over his mouth and the other one on his elbow. I spent my entire life with you, yet you only did it to take advantage of me, treating me like a damned meat locker. I remember those smells, with those other people you tricked and ate. Were those people's children, pets, and family? Or were those just wild animals that happened to luck out and get eaten by the big bag sack of lying shit that is Desmond Miles? Answer me, goddamn you. He finally stopped whimpering, and said, "You keep calling me the monster who limps, destroys people's lives, doesn't always know what to say, and acts like he's never met a human before. But look at yourself, right now. Look at how you're walking, how you're acting, who you are. I saw you when you were a baby, I saw your parents as children, and I saw how lonely you were at school, how the other kids beat you. I had always felt the way you did. And I wanted a friend, and so did you. Isn't that more important than what I am? I'm not going to kill you. Even if you want to kill me. I just want to see you be happy." I instantly stopped feeling so rage-filled. I walked over to the creek, and looked at my reflection in the ripples. He wasn't the monster anymore. I was. I turned around, and he had that same, sad smile on his face. I galloped over to him, and just held him, telling him how sorry I was. He reached into my pocket, and took out the pine cone, then put it back in. When I opened my eyes, he was gone. I've never seen him ever since then. But I always think about him. I got through college, and I've moved back into my father's old house. He died a few years ago. And every once in a while, I still go to that creek and look at myself. I always ask the air around me, am I happy? And whenever I see his reflection next time mine, I know that I'm doing what I want to do with my life. Even if he was a skinwalker, or a figment of my imagination, I will always keep his memory near to me, and remind myself that things are monsters when you see them that way, and that they're beautiful when I see them another way. Thank you for reading.
This is a true story, so sorry if it's not exciting enough. This is about something me and my brother call the Radio Man. My grandparents lived down in this big lake community in Florida, and my family would go visit them during breaks. Anyway, my brother and I would always just go out and explore the woods and shit. They always warned us about snakes and alligators and shit, but they knew and trusted all the people who lived there. So one day, we're just clambering through the swamp trees, and we hear someone talking over and through some trees, so we go to investigate. There was a man in a big coat hunched over in a clearing, talking to himself. But he talked funny. His voice kept jumping to different inflections and accents as he talked. When we talked about it later, my brother said it reminded him of when you scan through a bunch of radio stations and only get a few words from each, almost like a big weird sentence. Hence the name, Radio Man. The guy heard us or something, because he turned and looked right at us. And he was all fucked up. The best way I can describe his face is a lizard face that got put through a blender. And he started walking towards us and saying, "Hello, hello, hello," in his creepy ass voice. And we just fucking booked it. We were far as fuck from home, so we just ran together for like 5 or 10 minutes and then hid in a big bush that you couldn't see through. But even though we hid, we were excited and scared and were basically yelling to each other like idiots, saying shit like "What was that?" We were only in the bush for like a minute before it happened. The thing started fucking climbing into the bush with us. It wasn't even saying anything, it was just like softly moaning and grunting with the same weird fucking voice. We shit ourselves and started screaming and both just shot out of the bush and literally ran as fast as we could all the way back home. our grandparents and parents, and to this day they think we're full of shit. Looking back on it, it was probably some sort of deformed retarded guy who didn't know any better. My brother suggested once that maybe it was a guy who got shot in the face and it fucked up his brain, which would make sense. But who fucking knows, right? It was still fucking horrifying. We never went adventuring in those woods ever again. I still wouldn't. Fuck that shit.
New Mexican here. Just about everyone I know has seen something fucking weird. My mom and stepdad used to live on the outskirts of Valencia in a piece of shit hut. One day they were out walking around through a bit of forest heading home from the store. They lived a very far way from the town proper, but were poor as fuck and would cut any corners they could, including gas. The forest in that area was fucking creepy. It was pretty similar to the bosque that surrounds the Rio Grande, since the way home was along an irrigation ditch. It was pretty dark at this point and they never went out late, but I guess they cut it too short. About half a mile away from their house, they saw this fucking weird creature walking along the opposite side of the ditch. My mom says that it looked like an enormous albino deer, like the size of a really big moose. She told me that its legs were moving at really creepy and unnatural angles. She also said that its fave area looked kinda flat, like it didn't have a muzzle. It had a face that almost looked like an alien and its eyes were glowing red. She and my stepdad both froze when they saw it and watched it walk for a few seconds before it noticed them and immediately fled into the forest. They pretty much bolted home after that. I think that creature may have been a skinwalker, but who the hell knows. Also New Mexican. Sounds almost like a large chupacabra. My friend told me that one time he and his bud were walking down a ditch late at night in Bosque Farms and that they saw what looked like a black mountain lion leap out of an empty ditch and it shape-shifted into a regular-sized house cat mid-flight. It fled into the forest. One time I was walking my dog in the bosque. I stumbled upon this weird-ass structure made of wooden sticks. This isn't unusual in the bosque, a lot of homeless people and campers build them as shelter. But this one was enormous, like the size of an actual house. I walked up to it and tried looking inside of it, but it was pitch black in there. The entrance was a somewhat small hole. A child might have been able to walk in by ducking down, but an adult would have to crawl in on all fours. As I was bending down to inspect it, I suddenly heard a female voice whisper something into my left ear, crystal clear. I couldn't understand her, but whatever she said, it was definitely not in English. My heart fucking dropped and I felt a sense of dread like I have never before. I felt like I was about to die and that I was in immediate danger. My dog's tail was completely between his legs, and as I turned and sort of speed walked away, he tugged on his leash as hard as he could, making a beeline out of the bosque. I felt like something sinister was watching me the whole time. Even as I exited the bosque, it felt like there was some very evil presence being left behind. I recently talked to a Native American girl at my school and she mentioned to me that she spoke Tiwa. I asked her to say a few things for me and now I'm completely convinced that's the same language that mystery voice spoke to me in.